Hey everyone, Scott here to discuss From Here to Eternity, starring Burt Lancaster, Montgomery Clift, Deborah Kerr, Donna Reed, Frank Sinatra, and Ernest Borgnine. I don't know if I said that right, please forgive me. And directed by Fred Zinnemann. Now, I've never seen this movie before, so let's just get straight into this, shall we? It's 1941 in Hawaii at an army base in Schofield Barracks where we meet Robert E. Lee Pruitt, played by Montgomery Clift, and Angelo Maggio, played by Frank Sinatra. And Pruitt goes and meets the captain, Dana Holmes, as well as Sergeant Milton Warden, played by Burt Lancaster, as Pruitt was assigned to quit fighting for the past year because he got in a fight with someone whom I think is a woman named Dixie Wells. I don't know if that's the case, but tell me I'm wrong on that. And is offered a job as he doesn't want to fight. And I'm liking the opener for this so far. Pruitt and Sergeant Warden walk out as they encounter the captain's wife, Karen, played by Deborah Kerr. And Sergeant Warden has a bad feeling about Pruitt, and Karen chats with Sergeant Warden about things her husband has told him. And the next scene, the captain comes home to Karen, and the only character are expecting to hate halfway through is Sergeant Galovitz, which I'll get there when I get there, as he comes off like a hard ass, excuse my French. But the actor playing him does a good job at playing that type of character, and I do like being around them, as I like them quite a bit. The other men pick on Pruitt, while Angelo steps up for him. And while Pruitt doesn't get Sergeant Warden, he learns about him as training begins the next day. Pruitt doesn't do the drill and walks with Sergeant Warden and learns how to drill and to Pruitt, not assembling his rifle right as Warden drops Pruitt to the ground. No, not Warden, but Galovitz drops Pruitt to the ground, and the training scenes are fun to watch. Sergeant Warden visits Karen at the house as the captain has some papers to sign and has a brief drink with Karen, and he insults her, and she doesn't know if she wants him to leave or until they start kissing, as that was an interesting choice in my opinion. Pruitt is invited by Angelo to hang out with the guys at some bars and get some girls, you name it, while Sergeant Warden meets with Karen at a beach location. And she comes off feisty as she's eventually tells them she has a bathing suit on, while Pruitt and Angela go to the Congress Club and meets Alma, aka Lorene, which we'll get there later, played by Donna Reed from It's a Wonderful Life, which I've never seen to this day, but one day I will. And I like their chemistry as it works beautifully. Angelo almost gets into a fight with Sergeant Fatso Judson for the music, and he gets back to Lorene, and she chats with him, someone named Bill, or maybe Milton, as I was confused what she was saying, as it might have been Sergeant Warden, but nope, Sergeant Warden is still with Karen at this point in time at the beach, and he acts all jerkish to Karen about another guy who was a soldier, and he asks for a story about him, and she tells him she was pregnant with another man's baby, as the captain was drunk while she was pregnant, and an hour later her baby boy was born and suddenly died, as this is a tragic story, and I'm thinking divorce him if you must, which she will later in the film, I'll say. And their chemistry is good, as well as Angela interrupting Pruitt and Lorene in a private room and gives them whiskey, as he confesses to her he used to box but not anymore, and we learn about how he killed Dixie Wells, which is very good writing in my opinion. The next day comes and training begins, and Sergeant Warden picks on Pruitt once again as he digs a hole and buries a newspaper in the hole. In boxing training comes, and Sergeant Galovitz purposely drops some water on the ground while Pruitt doesn't want to clean up his mess, and he doesn't apologize for talking back to him, which felt so in your face to that guy. While the captain tells Sergeant Warden to treat him like, Sergeant Galovitz to treat him like an animal. And I've worked with people who treat me like an animal, as that's not something new from people like that. As Sergeant Warden comes to Pruitt and Sergeant Galovitz treats him harshly, while Warden wants to teach, well, no, Galovitz wants to teach him a lesson, and it's not a good lesson, but we'll see, like, that which works for me, great for me, I'll say. Pruitt and Angelo go to the same place as Warden to drink with Pruitt, briefly fights with Fatso, as he pulls out a knife, and Warden almost kills Fatso, but forces him to put the knife down, and afterhand, Pruitt goes outside to chat with Warden, and the acting is very good in this movie. Angela gets a different duty from usual, while Pruitt visits Lorene in the club and have a chat about how busy she's been, and Pruitt wants to be with her, and she can't walk out of the club, and she confesses her name is Alma, and she decides to meet Pruitt at a bar, and she says the army doesn't love him back, as he loves the army. And Angelo comes in with a uniform, and the acting is very good in this movie, like I said, as while he was shot great, Pruitt finds out Angelo is in serious trouble with the army, as Angelo ditches his position in the army, and Pruitt tells him to put his clothes on and to go back to his position, as a couple of soldiers comes and gets Angelo while he's drunk. And the next day comes, and Warden gets a call saying Angelo is going to jail for 6 months. And who's his guard? Fatso. While Pruitt gets a key from Alma's place, along with her roommate, and they spend some time together. And I'm really liking the movie so far, as the cinematography is great to look at, despite it's in black and white. Don't get me wrong, it looks great. Warden is with Karen as she tells him to get a promotion, while she wants to divorce the captain, and he says he wishes he never fell in love with her, and instantly regrets it, as Alma and Pruitt have a cup of coffee along with dinner, and Pruitt wants to marry Alma, and she doesn't want to get married because he's a soldier, as she needs him, and these love scenes are charismatic, as they're romantic to watch, in my opinion. Karen asks the captain to divorce him, and yeah, that's right. While Pruitt hears Fatso is beating up on Angelo, and he doesn't say a stinking thing, as Angelo wants to escape jail, and Pruitt is approached by Galovitz and bullies him around until they start fighting, as Pruitt fights again, thanks to Galovitz antagonizing Pruitt. And who wins the fight? Pruitt, as someone confesses Galovitz started the fight, and that was a good fight between Pruitt and Galovitz, as I felt the intense tension between the two. Pruitt gets drunk as he approaches Warden, while he gets another drink, and Warden offers a bottle to him, and they sit together about Warden becoming a good officer, and I like that Warden has an arc of being an officer of the army. Angelo makes it to Warden and Pruitt as he gets out and advises him to watch out for Fatso, as he beat up Angelo, and unfortunately, Angelo dies, and Pruitt feels lonely without him being around, as he horns the funeral song of a soldier down, and everybody hears it as they honor Angelo for the soldier he is, and he tears up, which is a heartbreaking scene to see his only friend in the army dead, and I felt so bad for Pruitt at this point. Pruitt approaches Fatso to have a word with him, and they have a knife fight, with Pruitt killing Fatso off, and this fight was more intense than the previous fight with Galovitz, as I felt his anger, and that is very good filmmaking at its best. Pruitt comes to Alma's place with blood in his hands that's not his, and is wiped out from the fight in the previous scene, and he misses 3 days of training for the army, and Captain Ross makes Warden demote Galovitz for starting the fight with Pruitt in the first place. And Warden talks with Karen, and he was led to believe he saw Pruitt, and Karen brings up how Warden doesn't want her to marry her, and she breaks up with Warden, while Pruitt gets drunk. Well, he doesn't tell Alma he killed Fatso. Maybe he did, I just don't know. And people are wondering who did, and the audience knows Pruitt did. I mean, come on, as we saw it, so it makes sense. Pearl Harbor is bombed by the Japanese back on December 7th in 1941, which I'm thinking we're on that day, as this is a better romance movie as well as an accurate historic movie than that Michael frickin' Bay piece of crap. And this is a better movie than that. And it is also better than Roland Emmerich's Midway, in my opinion, as it's been a devastating day for the Americans, as the news say to stay home while Pruitt goes in the army base. And I guess he did tell Alma he killed Fatso off screen. She wants to marry Pruitt, but he goes back to the army because he's a soldier, and he gets back there and gets himself shot and killed, and they end the movie with Alma on a ship as they leave Hawaii for good and never come back there ever again while talking with Karen, as this is a sad ending for sure. But at the end of the day, I like the climax for what it was, as this is a very good movie. Now it's time for my rating. I'll give this movie a 8.4 out of 10. The movie is fun to watch along with the training scene, and I do like the characters as well as being around them, as this is the best movie taking place during Pearl Harbor times, as this works so much better than the Michael Stinkin' Bay film, as well as the Roland Emmerich film Midway, which I'll review at some point. The writing is very good, as the characters have chemistry, as this movie works great, and the scenes work so great, as the director Fred Zinnemann does a great job at making this movie, and the acting is very good in this movie, in my opinion. It has a sad ending for sure, but at the end of the day, I had a fun time watching this movie, as this is a solid recommendation, as I like the movie quite a bit, and it does belong in the Columbia Classics for a good reason, as it is a very good movie. So I'd like to thank you guys for joining me, and next time I will be back with To Sir With Love. And until then, have a good night.